Welcome to our Indie Street Chat. The members of Bloodhound Picks and an occasional guest give their no BS experiences with current aspects of the industry. Join me as I talk with Christopher Dane about his leading role in The Unfamiliar, what it's like working on the film, and what it's like working as an actor in the modern era. It was a lot of fun, and he was a great person to be able to chat with. Enjoy. So thank you for joining me, Christopher.
You're most welcome.
Yep. So I'd love for you to be able to tell our audience and our listeners your history and your background and kind of how you started out.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sort of a bit of a latecomer into the whole acting thing. So I actually started out 100 years ago. I'm showing my age here. I was in advertising. I was sort of doing the creative bits. I was an art director, but I did a bit of acting at school, and always sort of carried that with me as something that I'd love to do. And then at a ripe old age of 34, I kind of saddled onto a different horse and became an actor. So so quite late into it, and then just did 3 years of drama school, and have sort of done film and TV more than anything the last sort of 15 years.
Wow, amazing. So I don't want to obviously spoil too much about the movie, The Unfamiliar, which we're kind of highlighting in this, but before we get into that, what was how do you come about this role, and what was the casting process like? And
well, it was sort of interesting casting process for me because I think originally the casting was going slightly younger than my age group, and so I wasn't originally in the spotlight, I suppose. And then they kind of wanted to go slightly older because they were casting some of the other people. So I think especially the lovely Rebecca who plays my daughter in the film. So I think they cast her slightly older, and therefore they wanted to go older with the character of Ethan. And then I sort of came into the spotlight, and that was quite late on. So I was basically contacted by the line producers who worked with me before, and asked if I wanted to have a meeting with Henk, which I did, and that was it.
No, that's great. And so for the listeners, The Unfamiliar kind of tells a story about a war veteran who comes back home and is dealing with PTSD, but then she also starts to believe that her family that she left is not entirely who they say, or that something is mysteriously afoot. I'm trying to phrase it the best way I can without giving anything away of the actual movie. But so you play.
Yeah, it's quite difficult.
Yeah, because there's a lot of folklore involved with it. There's a lot of kind of twists and turns. So that's been the struggle, I guess, with doing these little interviews.
Yeah.
But I'd love to kind of hear like how you prepped for the role, and your role is actually the kind of patriarch of the family away, and the one who's been taking care of of the house, the family, and while she's been away on tour or on duty. What was that process like as an actor? Because you shift a little bit here and there in the role, and there's a lot of layers to it.
Yeah, I mean, kind of to start from the beginning, when I read the script, for me as an actor, it was that chance of playing something that's slightly different. As in, you don't see many films where exactly what you've just said, where the slight role reversal, I suppose, where it's the female, the woman who comes back from war, and it's the guy who stayed back at home. And yeah, as I said, there's loads of layers in his character, because he's a professor in ancient mythology, Polynesian mythology, and he's spent his time taking care of 3 kids, also been on a research trip to Hawaii to delve into the sort of the culture of that. So for me, it was just an interesting. It was an interesting chance to play something slightly different from what I'm normally cast as and normally portrays. And it sounds a bit like a sort of a very weird thing to say, but it was a chance for me to show my softer side. I know this is kind of a horror film, so it just sounds a bit weird to say that it's a chance for me to show a softer side, but that's kind of what I mean. Yeah. He is a stay-at-home dad, and he's dealing with the kids and stuff, and he's supportive of his wife, who's clearly got a sense of duty that she had to go, even though she had given birth not long before she went. So that was kind of the interesting bit for me. And then obviously, because of the Hawaiian culture that's involved, did a bit of research of that. Hank sent me some stuff about it. And as he has said in other interviews, not a lot of people know a lot about this culture. So it was very interesting to have a look at that as well.
No, that sounds great. And so the process of the film, it changes location. Well, not just location, but also enters into different worlds in a way, which show contrast each time, even through your own performances. So kind of what was, I guess, how was it filming, or in general, or just the production?
Yeah, well, the production was kind of split in 3 different sort of locations, I suppose. So we had one location that was the home of the family, that was in England. Then there was the Hawaiian section, where it's a home they're renting in Hawaii. And then there's the lagoon and the kind of otherworldly sort of spirit world, I suppose, that comes into play later on in the film. And I was involved with the 2 first sections. I wasn't really that involved with the last bit that involved a lot of work in a water tank.
Yeah.
I know that the girls were like, they were excited about that, but they were also quite apprehensive because it is quite a different thing to do. So I would have loved to have done it, but it wasn't in the script. So I was like, okay, maybe another time.
Yeah. In the sequel, it'll be all water tank for you.
It'll be all water tank,
yeah. It actually it brings up some great questions of like working as an actor, and I'd really love to hear about just working as an actor now in modern day, and then especially kind of moving into, obviously the elephant in the room with anything related to this industry is the effects that COVID have had.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as with any industry, the COVID thing has had a massive impact. Basically, from one day to the next, everything stopped. I was lucky to have just stopped a project, ended filming on a project just before the lockdown, but it just means that there's really nothing. There's been 4 or 5 months of nothing, and a lot of productions have been postponed, and a lot of productions are now kind of looking at, can we start up again, and how do we start up again? And it's a very weird situation. I mean, even before that, there's been a big sort of change in the whole industry, especially when it comes to independent productions. Mm-hmm. And you were sort of asking about working as an actor in this sort of slightly new way of doing things. I think what it has meant mostly is that things are very compressed. Because of finances and because of the digital, the cameras and all that sort of thing, things are being compressed into smaller and smaller chunks to where back in the day, you would have 2 or 3 months to shoot a film like this. You find yourself maybe have 5 or 6 weeks if you're lucky. So it demands a lot of preparation from the production. It takes a lot of timing and figuring out, how to do things. And in this production, on top of that, they decided to write a 10-month-old baby into the whole thing.
Yeah.
That brings its own sort of limitations and stresses, I can tell you.
Yeah. No, I can only imagine. I have a toddler, so that's hard enough.
Right, yeah.
So I guess kind of one of the things that was interesting to me in watching it is that the cast in general, it feels very tight knit, and there is kind of a very in this feature length amount of time, you're able to really convey that depth that a family has among each other, and kind of I'm curious about what was it, the connecting process between all of you, and how do you work together?
Well, one of the great things about this film is that it's a small cast. So you have like this, as you said, the family unit, and there's like 4 people in it, 5 people, in it. And we met for a read-through where we went through it and had chats about it and spent a day sort of talking about the film and what the ideas were. Henk was sort of leading that, and then as in most acting on film and TV, you're kind of thrown into it deep end. I think one of the first scenes that we had to do was the scene that opens the film between Jemima and my character. So it was just straight into the deep end, a very tender scene between a husband and wife, and we've known each other for like maybe a day and a half.
Oh,
so it's just it's just right into the deep end, and you do that. But as I said, the great thing was, first of all, the casting to just gel instantly. I think we all had the same mindset when we came into it, and so it wasn't difficult to kind of feel that we were a bit of a family straight on.
Okay. Oh no, that's very fortunate. And from talking with Llewellyn, he kind of really hyped up the whole cast and saying how like instantaneous it all was.
Yeah, it was one of those where it just it sort of just clicks. And obviously, it's luck sometimes, because you never really know when you throw people together like that, and there isn't a long rehearsal process. When we do theatre, you got maybe 5-6 weeks where you rehearse, and you get into that kind of. It's easier to build those relations, whereas film actors are used to kind of just being thrown into it and deal with it. And in this situation, it was not difficult, because we kind of everybody got on, we clicked, and that's part of the casting process as well.
Mm-hmm.
As the casting, as the director and the casting director looking at it, they also have to look at, will these people work together? And that's a big part of the casting process.
So as kind of part of that, and dealing with, changing subjects slightly, but not really, and dealing with horror, a lot of this film, again, without spoiling too much, there's a lot of focus on the character and on the relationships, where a lot of movies in this type of genre or subgenre or whatever many times just go for the scare. Did you have any research and prior with other films that you were told to watch from Henk or whoever, or what was it like, having that more of that slow burning dread, and then also having these kind of scares as well?
Yeah, it's interesting, because obviously this film is not, if you like exploding heads and violence and gore, this film is not for you. I can sort of just say that off the top there. We weren't really told to watch specific film, but it was very clear from the read-through and from reading the script that this was a slightly different take on a film, and it's definitely a film that you knew from the outset it was going to demand a bit from the audience. So you have to kind of. It's one of those films where you show the audience some characters, a situation, things happen, and you kind of ask the audience to go, okay, are you with us? Because you need to invest in this. You need to figure out what's going on as the character, Izzy's character, sort of finds out as well. So it's one of those films, and that was very clear from the outset. The tension, I think, comes from the situation more than from the performances. And it's a weird thing where if you don't know much about filmmaking and stuff like that, it's often it's hard to describe, but obviously on a set, the things that will come across as really creepy and weird and maybe scary on screen are not very scary when you film them, because it's a very technical thing. To make a jump scare work, you had to be very specific and very technical about the camera, where the actors are, and all that sort of thing. So it's not scary at all when you film it. But obviously, when you edit it, when you put the music in, then it sort of works. It's a weird thing that you can make a horror film, but you're never really scared.
Definitely. I know this has been great, kind of learning about all this process and the process for the Unfamiliar itself. Now, what I guess, as we're slowly wrapping up a little bit, I'd love to hear about I know there's been, with everything, it's kind of changed stuff, but if there is a future projects you have coming up, how can people find you? How can social media even, or just what are you up to in the future?
Yeah. Well, I've got another film coming out later this year. That's a very different film. It's called Save Sandra. It's set in the Netherlands. So I'm looking forward to that. And that again was filmed, I think, last year. So before all the lockdown and stuff. But you can follow me. You can go on IMDb. You can go on my website. That's Christopher-Dane.com. I'm on Twitter as well. So it's Chris_Dane. Instagram is Instaraptor_Dane. There's loads of ways to sort of find me and follow up what I do.
Awesome. And so that actually brings up something that I was meaning to chat about so you're based primarily out of the UK, if I am correct.
I'm based in London, yeah.
Okay. But so then because I know that, being from the States, there is kind of that difference. And I know you also just talked about the Netherlands and filming there. And if there are kind of any differences in terms of the process, the filmmaking, the kind of the film acting process, or just the process in general versus, our listeners who are primarily people out of the United States or might kind of have a assumption of.
To be honest, I don't really think there is that much of a difference.
Okay.
I think European projects, I don't know, it might be more in the writing more than the process itself, I think, and sort of the subjects that come up. I don't think there's a huge difference in the process itself.
Okay. No, that's great to hear. And as I said, it's been amazing chatting with you. I love the movie and kind of loved watching all the performances and seeing this kind of character driven, but also having this tension. And and I can't wait to see what everybody else thinks and see kind of what you do next. And just enjoyed having you.
Yes, it's a very exciting time when films come out. You just want to know what people think of it, and it's coming out in the UK on the 11th of September. So it's great. There's been a lot of love for it so far, and thank you very much for having me.
Bloodhound Picks podcast is produced by Josh Lee, Craig Dram, and Kyle Hintz. Music by Raymond Seed. Audio editing by Kyle Hintz.